Hey, what's up guys, it's Liam Weagle on your Overwatch, back with a new video. Today we're going to be talking about ranked strategies. We're going to be talking about why loads of DPS in certain comps work sometimes. Now, it goes without saying you should always be trying to communicate with your team and build decent team comps, because that's how you're most likely going to get value and win games. But as we know by now, Overwatch ranked is not about being good at Overwatch, it's about being good at gaming the system. So that's what we're going to talk about today, and how to win more ranked games with uncooperative teammates. Now, what sparked this topic actually was your guys' reaction to some of my Grandmasters footage. You said, how is this GM? So we're talking about this Dorado game on screen now. You'll see that at the start of this second round, I've decided to pocket the Pharah teammate with the Mercy, because the Pharah has been playing really good the entire game. But what actually happens here is the Doomfist that's been feeding and the D.Va that's been feeding all game do not want to swap at all, and the Tracer's on a Smurf, so doesn't really care either. You have to remember that just picking D.Va because you need a tank is not necessarily a good thing, because just needing a tank or just a healer in ranked isn't how it works. You need certain things that synergizes with the rest of your team. So that's why I picked Mercy for the Pharah, but I decided, even though Secret's playing really well, I would also struggle to heal the rest of my team. So I said to Secret, go back to your Hanzo pick that was playing really well, and I'm going to go Sombra. Now, I'm bad at Sombra, but we'll let the gameplay play out in the background, and you'll see that because of all of these multiple threats, we're actually able to win out a losing game. This is because matchmaking is disorganized, but we're all on self-sustaining heroes. All of these heroes are able to keep themselves alive. Even the Hanzo is able to stay far away and get the picks that really matter. Now, the reason that all of this actually happened is because on the defensive side, our team tilted because we did have a 2-2-2 comp, and the enemy team was still rolling us with their triple DPS. This actually happens a lot in matchmaking, and I have a really good example of why this happens as well. In this diamond game where we're all trying to learn new heroes and actually play together for once, we come across somebody that wants to play Torbjorn. So what we decide to go is go triple DPS to make up for that lack of damage, and we actually end up winning this first game out quite convincingly again, because the amount of damage we're throwing at the enemy is flustering them entirely. They can ball up or try to play together as much as they want, but these angles are causing huge problems for their team comp, and we're just exposing all of these angles all the time. Another great example of what this gameplay shows is that tanks are not the only way you can create space. When you have these different angles, maybe a Tracer in the backline and some ranged DPS, the damage actually creates a lot of space, which is what the tanks are supposed to do. And in this gameplay on Li Jiang, we do have a Reinhardt, but he never really has to do a lot in this map because we're creating the space for him. Now, what happens in the next round is more obvious. We actually go to that 2-2-2 comp that everybody screams for. But what I'm going to show you on screen now is our Reinhardt massively overextending into the enemy backline. And when you have a death ball comp like this, your only real choice is to try to stay together. But because of the comp that we have, we don't manage to do so. And unfortunately, our Ryan really struggles with his positioning, where to hold his barrier and keep his team alive. And he spends this whole game too far in. This opens up the enemies to easily eat alive our squishy characters, and even though our Reinhardt doesn't necessarily die first, he has kind of failed at his job. So to try and counteract this, what we end up doing is going D.Va instead of the Roadhog. This is to enable the Reinhardt to be a little bit more aggressive and also keep his teammates alive. But once again, this proves ineffective. There's only so many resources you can put into your tank sometimes before you have to think, this isn't working, what else might work? And the fact that this guy was either in too far or had his barrier broke before he got to the fight, or even on some occasions like this one, he was in the fight before we'd even regrouped, it created all sorts of problems. You're trying to get them resources into the wrong place. Now, what's even better about this whole story is we go back to play that triple DPS on the next point, and because we're able to create more space and the Ryan is allowed to be more aggressive, he makes some really good plays. So it was great that we enabled him by picking an unconventional comp. Context is really important here because on a small map like this, the tanks are the carry. But the reason you see a lot of multi-DPS the higher you go up the ranks, in fact, is because the self-sustaining heroes getting kills and not dying for mechanically skilled players is a lot easier than trying to coordinate with random people in a team-based game. The concept of 2-2-2 is also very confused because trying to pick just 2 tanks, 2 DPS and 2 healers can create loads of different problems. Dive healers with static DPS or a death ball without a Lucio is always going to fail to an uncoordinated set of enemies that are self-sustaining and just doing damage. And that's the big issue that we actually have here. It is why these team comps work. Now, if you was to try and run these crazy comps against an organized team, you'd have a much different situation, but with how ranked currently works, that's never going to happen. Now, certain heroes are really good for this type of play. Zenyatta is amazing because he offers a little bit of healing with a defensive ultimate that's really strong, but also tons of damage himself, and he also enables them selfish picks to do 30% extra damage to their targets. You'll also see quite a lot of Roadhog and Zarya in matchmaking work because they deal so much damage that an enemy team trying to coordinate with the shield generally don't know how to deal with. The amount of damage coming their way is a lot easier to output than an Orisa or Reinhardt perfectly timing their shielding, getting perfect healing from the right healers in the right context. Overwatch is actually way more complicated than people give it credit for, and that's what creates a lot of these problems. The last example I have here is a different game on Dorado, where again we're really struggling getting tanks through the choke and defending with the 2-2-2 comp. We don't have the right healer really here on attack, which would be Lucio with the Reinhardt to get him through the choke, or the dive tanks to disrupt the enemy team and get into the backline. So once again, we take the multiple DPS, kind of ignore the healing, and make sure we frag out from a distance with the Pharah and clean up with the Genji, and you take these engagements at the right time. Now, what is really crazy is actually the misconception about there being too many DPS players in ranked. We've explained why this works, but what's the problem with supports and tanks, and why is this harder to do? Well, the real answer actually is that tanks and healers are completely misunderstood. It is not your job as a tank actually to take loads of damage all the time. Winstons and Divas are the most notorious for this, but the Rhine feeding earlier was also a good example. Your job as a tank is to get your team engaged in the fight. So if you're a Winston or a Diva, your job is to avoid all the damage that you can, and then you pounce something, creating space for your team to then follow up on the damage. However, in matchmaking, what these tanks do is they just take all the damage in the world. Diva's defense matrix is gone before the choke, which means she can't follow up to defend the Winston when he overextends. This then creates a healer problem. The healers have to put all of their resources into keeping the tanks alive. This is the complete opposite to what the pros do. The pros are always pocket healing a damage character because the tanks don't take damage and they engage at the right time. In matchmaking, the opposite is actually true. You will never see a Mercy pocketing a Widow, and when you do, it is incredibly difficult to counter because that is where the strength in comps are in Overwatch as a game. But trying to access that is very difficult in solo queue, and because we don't have a team queue or incentives to queue as a oh god, he's ranting about matchmaking again, isn't he, guys? But I hope this gave you guys some insight. The reason people are all picking DPS isn't just because they're fun, it's because their strength is easy to access, and pumping all of your healing into a tank that's feeding and taking too much damage will rarely get you the win, whereas getting your own unique value will. So, always try to coordinate with your team. Trying to get a 2-2-2 comp is awesome if that 2-2-2 comp is actually one that synergizes together. When that comp isn't working, other options are available to you. Solo healing with a Mercy is actually extremely strong when your tanks are feeding because she can res one of them and you can still get that solo value on your own. Let us know what you guys think in the comments section down below. Context always matters with this stuff, but I'd love to hear your thoughts and opinions and maybe some matchmaking miracles that you've come up with. Be sure to drop a like as it does help us out and it lets us know that you're enjoying the content, and you're going to want to hit that bell icon so you get notified when our videos go live. Be sure to have a great day as always. Take care and peace, people.